Right, good morning and welcome back once again to the channel. Thanks for joining me. As you can see, the sea out warming up as usual. Today is my birthday, and I'll tell you that, the reason I'm telling you that in a minute. But tucked away in here, I've got some chocolates for the lads. It's a thing we do when we meet up on birthdays, so we'll be eating those later. But I'm going to make a statement now, quite a controversial one, but I'm then going to try and justify what I mean exactly by it. Did you know how much I love the CL? Fantastic bike, great to ride, absolutely love it. But in many ways, in one way in particular, I think the CL 500 typifies everything that's wrong with the Japanese motorcycle industry. So what on earth do I mean by that? Have I lost my mind? We'll get down the road and I'll explain exactly what I mean. I'll see you in a minute. Yes, thanks for joining me and welcome back to the channel. Good to see you again. So what on earth do I mean by the fact that the CL typifies everything that's wrong with the Japanese motorcycle industry? Have I lost my mind? Well, no, I don't think I have actually. The reason I told you it's my birthday today is because that means I'm 64. I'm 64 today. And that means that I lived through decades of Japanese dominance, really, in the motorcycle industry, through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Those were my sort of main years where I was motorcycling, and the way I get my perception of Japanese motorcycles. Let me take you back a little bit. Can you remember some of the incredible bikes of those times? If you're the same age as me, you may well do. Let me take you back to the CB750, the original Honda CB750. The bike that many people said almost single-handedly finished off the British bike industry. Then there was the incredible Kawasaki Z1. What a legendary, innovative bike that was. Kawasaki's challenge really to the CB750. And then moving further forward into the 80s, you had the incredible two-strokes, probably the peak, the YPVS 350 Yamaha. Incredible bike. And then, of course, you had the sports bike battle of the 80s and the 90s. We're in the 600 and the 1000cc category. The big four Japanese manufacturers battled it out, bringing out a new bike almost every month that was a little bit faster, a little bit lighter, a little bit better handling. It spawned incredible bikes like the Fireblade, the Honda Fireblade, the whole generations of those bikes, incredible. The GSXR Suzukis, the R1, phenomenal bikes. So yeah, Japan was really riding a wave, if you want to call it that. And it was a wave mostly, the one word I'd use is innovation. They were incredibly good at designing and producing incredible motorcycles that really led the world. Everyone else was left in their wake. The European manufacturers were miles behind. Japanese bikes led the world. The premise, the whole point of my argument is that the Japanese motorcycle industry in many ways mirrors the greater, wider Japanese economy. And I'm going to tell you some facts about the Japanese economy, about the boom and about the bust. Some of the facts might actually amaze you. And then I'm going to bring it back round to how this impinges on the current day Japanese motorcycle market. So let's go back to the wartime. At the end of the war, Japan was devastated, as was Germany, but in the same way as Germany was rebuilt, the US helped to rebuild the Japanese economy as well. You see, America wanted a capitalist society, a democratic capitalist society to grow in the East, to be a flag bearer, if you will. And Japan was the chosen country for that. Now this resulted from the period from 1955, just 10 years after the war had ended, to 1975, 20 years, the Japanese economy grew, and it grew really fast. So here's fact number one. How much do you think the Japanese economy grew in that short 20 years? 10%, 20%, 50%, 100%? No, the Japanese economy actually grew by 435% in that period. It was an economic boom, as I said, largely assisted by the West. So from 1975, for the next 13 years, we come forward to 1988. And by 1988, here's a fact that might just blow your mind. In 1988, the top 8 banks on the planet were all Japanese. All of them were Japanese. And that was at a time when America was, of course, the superpower, and there was the European trading bloc. But the top 8 banks on the planet were all Japanese banks. And just a year later, just to show what a huge bubble this was, just a year later, the Japanese Imperial Palace in Tokyo, Japan's equivalent, if you like, to Buckingham Palace in London, it was valued, the palace and its grounds was actually valued at being worth more than the entire state of California. Just let that sink in for a minute. This was the ultimate economic bubble, and we all know what happens to bubbles, don't we? So yeah, it was a time where Toyota in cars, Honda in motorcycles, and Sony in electronics became household names. Japan was awash with money. At the time, Nissan, the huge car maker, was actually making more money from speculating on money markets than it was from making cars. And many Japanese companies were buying up half of New York. It was the time when Sony took over Warner Brothers, for instance. Well, obviously the West got a bit spooked by this. The balance of trade was going a little bit haywire, and everyone sort of knew that this bubble could go on forever. So a G5, as it was then, a G5 summit was held, and without getting deep into politics, what resulted was the economic collapse in Japan in 1990. The markets got spooked and an economic collapse happened. Now during this period, literally thousands of Japanese companies went bankrupt. Unemployment became a thing, something that was unheard of in Japan prior to that, and thought of as being impossible. Unemployment was rife, and even suicides started to go through the roof, sadly. That's how bad this shock was. So many of you now will know that Japan probably isn't doing too well as we speak today in 2024, but if I asked you a question, how long has the Japanese economy been in recession? How long has it been essentially flatlining, would you say? 5 years? Would you say a decade? Well, the truth is, and here's another fact, the Japanese economy has been flatlining essentially for 34 years, ever since that crash in 1990. To put it in perspective, in 1990, out of the top 50 companies on the planet, 32 of them were Japanese. As we speak today, how many companies do you think are in the top 50 in the world that are Japanese? And the answer is not 32, but 1. Toyota, as you probably would have guessed. Just 1. That's how big a shock this economic collapse made. So what about the wider effects of this really terrible recession has had on the Japanese economy? Yes, but what about on Japanese society? Because many pundits and many people who study this sort of thing think that the mojo, if you like, the innovative, get out there and do it, nothing's impossible sort of spirit of the Japanese people has somewhat been broken. And that's where we come round to the motorcycle industry, because I think the motorcycle industry has in many ways mirrored the more general boom and then bust of the Japanese economy. All those incredible motorcycles that I spoke about earlier, where are their modern equivalents? Where are the Fireblades of today? What about the Hayabusa? Some would say maybe the last great motorcycling trend started by the Blackbird and ended in that incredible bike by the turn of the century. Where are those bikes today? Those era-defining motorcycles. And I started off with this by talking about the CL500. Now, do I think the CL500 is a bad bike? Absolutely not. I think it's superb, fantastic fun. But the point is, the CL500 is Honda's first new generation scrambler. The very first one. Triumph have had a scrambler in their range since 2006, and Ducati have been building scramblers for almost a decade now and selling lots and lots of bikes. And yet Honda are really the first Japanese manufacturer to jump on that little bandwagon. And that seems to be the trend now in the Japanese motorcycle industry. Do they set the trend? Do they lead? Or do they follow? Are the trends being set elsewhere? Let's have a look at the latest massive trend, of course, retro motorcycles. Where did that really begin? And who was taken up on that and made it into the massive thing it is? It certainly isn't the Japanese, is it? I can only really name one really successful Japanese retro motorcycle, and that is the Kawasaki Z900RS. So it's over to you. What do you think? Where do you think the peak of the Japanese industry, motorcycle industry, happened? Maybe you think it's still peaking. Maybe you think the best's yet to come. Or do you think, like I do, that it's very much mirrored and followed the boom and bust of the Japanese economy? Because I miss the glory days. I think all the trends now are being set in Europe. As I said, the retro trend, which of course has been capitalised on very much by Royal Enfield, who made retro bikes anyway, so jumped on that bandwagon and have done so well out of it. So that's my thing. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you think the Japanese motorcycle industry has lost its mojo? If so, when? And do you think it'll ever return? So that's it. I'm at the CAF now. Looks like a massive turnout today, considering it's a bit chilly. So I've got to find somewhere to park now. They're probably all here because they know it's my birthday and I brought some chocolates along. Yeah, that's probably what it is. No, I'm kidding, but there we go. Right, that's all from me. Please leave your comments in the box. I'll be really interested to see what you think about this subject. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks for listening. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.